Hello and welcome to Faith in an Ever Changing World Encouragement and Hope Faith Story. I'm Janet Harley, your host, and it is my privilege and pleasure to have with me this morning as my guest, Melissa Gissy Witherspoon. And welcome, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I am
Yeah,
so excited to be spending time with you guys. I am so
great.
grateful to be here.
Yes, yes. And boy, what a powerful story Melissa has. From 2 decades of substance abuse, multiple failed attempts at sobriety, numerous arrests, a revolving door of treatment facilities, and a rock bottom that resulted in near death on her basement floor. Wow.
Mm.
But God. Yes. And right after our brief intro, Melissa will be sharing her faith story. So stay with us. And welcome back. And Melissa, if you will please, what is your faith story?
My faith story is a long story. It would not be able to be completely told in this short, wonderful amount of time that I have with you. So I'm going to do my best to try and share some of the pieces that I think are the most powerful.
Yeah.
Um, I am in recovery from addiction and alcohol, from drugs and alcohol,
Mm,
and I have about 10 years in recovery, and I struggled with a relationship with God. As a matter of fact, I had no relationship with God before
mm,
this attempt at recovery. I've had
mm,
several over the 2 decades of substance abuse use. I relapsed several times.
mm,
And this attempt, I believe, is so much different because of my relationship with God. And this attempt at sobriety started, you had mentioned it just a minute ago about a near death experience on my basement floor. And that is the
mm.
rock bottom that my addiction took me to. It took me
Yeah.
to attempted suicide, where
Mm,
I was on the basement, unfinished basement floor of my house,
mhm.
begging for God to just let me go because I was in so much pain. I just couldn't bear it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so I was raised in a home where I had God in my life. We had a banner that hung over our door that said love one another. So I want you
Mm,
to know that I was very aware of God and of faith and of religion and
mm,
spirituality. My problem, I believe, is that I never had developed an actual personal relationship with God. So there's a difference in theology and
mm,
understanding
mhm.
religion and
Yeah.
the stories, and then who God is and who I believe in Jesus. Jesus.
Mhm.
Um, they're wonderful stories you can hear about, but if you don't put in the work and do the steps that it takes to build a relationship, and in
Mhm.
relationships, we know, like in marriage and friendships and everything else, it requires ongoing work. You don't just
Yeah.
become friends and gain a closeness. you
Yeah.
have to you have to constantly put in the work. I had never done
Mhm.
that up until this attempt at recovery. So I believe that I had a divine intervention in my basement,
Mm,
and I went off
mm,
to treatment, and I took the necessary steps to get clean and carry out um, what I believe was instructions to get better, and then go out and let the world know that God exists, that His love is full of grace and
yes.
mercy. He's a merciful
Mhm.
God. And that all of the lies that I had told myself, or I had been told up until that very moment, were just that they were lies, and that He had been with me all along. And my ministry is built off of a book that I wrote. I believe that God called me to write a book to talk about my 20 years in addiction and some of those circumstances. and some of the choices that I made in those circumstances. And then to go out and to talk to people and do what we're doing here today, which is share the message of hope, and that there is hope and there is healing, and that everybody has the ability to have that relationship with God and to know love, real, true, unconditional love. And so that's what my story is about. It is about how I went through the depths of addiction, and it was hard, you get it. I don't know if your listeners, if you're out there, maybe you identify with my story, or maybe you don't know a lot about it. My book is very much written to both sides of that. I talk to the addict, and then I also talk to the loved ones up, so there can be a greater understanding. You can break the addiction stigma that keeps everybody, that stigma keeps us from talking about it, and the secrets and the isolation is what keeps society sick as far as addiction goes.
And it affects not only that person, but also everyone close to them, family, friends.
Right. Yeah. I say all the time, for one addict, think of the bubble of people it affects around. And that's just for one. And there are millions worldwide that struggle with some form of addiction. Yeah. So anyway, so that is it. And I think one of the things that I find most powerful about my story is I had this internal conversation with myself constantly, that if there was a God, how could he love me anyway? So what if there's a God? How could he love me from the choices and decisions that I've made? And that is one of the things that kept me from him. And so, that is how the devil works. That's how he puts a veil in front of you to where you can't find that closeness with God. And it's a lie. Once I started doing the work and lifting my addiction, and it took some time. It's a lot of work, and it's progress. You have to one day at a time, they say, progress, not perfection. But God started revealing himself to me. And then it was in ways that it's supernatural. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't explain some of the things that were happening. So it would make me say, okay, well, there is a God. And he is communicating.
He does love you. And
I was watching him, kind of like you find yourself in a crowd and you're watching something going on. You're seeing other people affected by their relationship with God, but I never had that connection. That was I felt like an outsider. And so when it started happening to me, and you can feel it from the inside out, and then I started acting towards other people, I started coming out of my shell, and this an immense amount of love was flowing out of me. And the force was not from me, it was from my relationship, the love that Jesus talks about, love one another. And it was it just started free flowing. And that I once you feel that and you understand that is possible, you can't turn from it. It's impossible.
That's right.
And it's if I ever get off course or I start slipping, I pour out to other people. I have a ministry. I'm constantly helping. But if I start slipping, I'm pouring back into myself and my relationship with God. I feel it instantly, and I want that closeness back. And I am not some extra special person that this has happened to. This is available for all of his children.
All of us, absolutely.
It's a hard concept to wrap your head around, because there's a lot of us.
It is.
A lot of kids. I can barely manage 4 of my own children. God's got a lot of children, but we're all deserving of it. He tells us that. He shows us that. And in my book, I talk about some of the ways that he revealed himself. And I talk about what it's like to not know how to pray. Doesn't that sound silly? You think it'd be easy to just sit down and start talking to God, but it's not. It's awkward.
No.
And it's an intimate thing. And when you don't know what you're doing, you don't know if you're doing it right. There's so much information out there in the world. You wonder, you think, am I doing this right? Can God hear me? I would say, God, is that you? Can you hear me? I
Yeah.
talk about that in my book as well, what it feels like to date yourself and get to know your own self, and then be able to be in a relationship where you are talking to God and getting to know him on an intimate level. And I include some prayers that help people. It helped me along the way. Just some initial
Yeah.
prayers. I like to offer that so people
Right.
have something to, like, a starting ground.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes. Yes.
so that's really what my faith story is that I've been through some struggles and challenges. I share my testimony in my book. I'm very open and
Mhm.
authentic and raw about
Mhm.
it. It's
Yeah.
it's PG. It's not anything that, I didn't want the book to be a horror story of the
Right.
hell that I
Right.
climbed through, because I really was in a
Yeah.
living hell. But I give
Yeah.
enough information for you to understand the pain and
Yeah.
my thought process. And then I share a lot about the coming out of it, the climbing out of
Yes.
it, and God
Yes.
leading me out of it.
And God's grace.
Yeah, God's
Grace
grace
and mercy.
and mercy.
Yes,
Yes.
for us.
Amen.
And, it's hard to ask forgiveness, but it's one thing to ask God to forgive us, but we also have to forgive ourselves,
That's so true. It
and
is
He
so
can help us
true.
do that
And
too.
that is, for me, I can't
Mhm.
speak for everybody else, but for me, I think it was easier to ask for God's forgiveness than it was to forgive myself, or
Yeah.
maybe even to accept that he had forgiven me.
Yes.
We get stuck in that place for a
Yeah.
short period of time where we've asked for the forgiveness and he's forgiven
Yeah.
us, but that acceptance with that, we have to work through, and through building a relationship with him and having a strong community of faithful people around you can help you with that. You don't have to be on your own. You really
Yes.
don't.
Yes.
I would think I would be the oddball out. I would tell people around me, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know that. I don't know the Bible verse you're quoting. I don't know. I've never
Right.
cracked open a Bible. I have now, but at the time, I didn't know. It was intriguing to me and it felt right in my soul, but I didn't know. And when you're open and you share that,
Yeah.
people want to help you learn. They come out of the woodworks. I'm like, I didn't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't know you knew so much. And they're like, oh yes, I pray. And it's wonderful. So that isolation and thinking that you're on your own and that you have to walk through anything by yourself is the biggest lie that the accuser uses. And I want to make that clear. The lie ends today. You
Yes.
do not have to be alone on whatever it is you're walking through.
No, not at
You
all.
you have a loving,
Mm.
graceful, merciful Father,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
you have a
Absolutely.
community of people that you haven't even met that are just waiting. They're craving to meet you and share God's goodness and love.
Well, Melissa, I know you have your book there. If you could show us your book and let us know where we can get it. I would like to mention your website, www.sober-now.com. And
Yes.
of course, if you want to get in touch with Melissa, it is Melissa at sober-now.com. So I'm sure that Melissa would love to talk with you
Yes.
and
I
answer
would. I message
questions or
people
help
back
you.
right away. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And Melissa, if you will tell us where we can purchase your book.
It's available on Amazon or
Hmm.
barnesandnoble.com. Is published by Lighthouse Christian Publishing, so you can also purchase it from their website.
Hmm.
I think if you Google the title or my name, you'll probably be able to find several outlets that you can get it from.
Okay. All right.
If you're having any kind of trouble doing that, you can message me. I'm also at sober-now on Facebook. You can message me there. I'll be
Good.
happy to sign a copy and get it to you if you'd like a special message.
Yes.
Um,
And tell us the name of
the
your.
name is I'm Sober, So Now What? A Journey of Hope and Healing.
Yes.
And the
Mm.
foreword was written by Gary Chapman. He is the author, best-selling author of The Five Love Languages.
Yes. Yes.
And he has a world of knowledge. He was a pastor. He's a retired pastor,
Mm.
but he's also a family counselor, and so he has a lot of experience with the addiction world And then on the spiritual side, he has a lot of experience about God's love. So his input in the book is also amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for being my guest today and
Oh, I'm
sharing
grateful.
your
Yeah.
sharing your powerful faith story with us. And we're just gonna let's pray for Melissa to continue in her recovery.
Mhm.
I guess recovery never ends.
Never.
It just yes. Hmm.
We evolve every day. We're
Yeah.
all evolving every day.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. But thank you again, Melissa, and also thank you all for watching, and also for Creative Motion Network and Abundant Television Network, two wonderful family Christian networks. Where you can catch some amazing programming, and as well as my show, Faith in an Ever Changing World, Encouragement and Hope. Thank you again for watching, and have faith and look up, friends, where our help comes from. Bye. God bless.